It's time, it's Mixon time went through my head, which none of you will get unless you are a fan of very old WWF or potentially All Japan Pro Wrestling.
Hell yeah, it's Mixon time, baby. Mixon bomb off the top rope.
Classic.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I'm your host for tonight. My name is Nick Walsh, and I am here with a good friend of mine. I'm here with a man who has plenty of patience with my computer issues, as they may be tonight, but hopefully those are all resolved. I am here with Vinny Gonzalez. Vinny, how's it going tonight, dude?
What's up, Walsh? Glad we got the computer stuff sorted out. And if there's one thing I'm known for, it's definitely my patience.
Yeah, you're probably the most patient person I've ever met, and not completely irrational at all times. But anyway, Vinny and I have a lot to get to tonight. We're going to go through part one of the week 4 preview. Duh, fucking stupid idiot. But we're going to go through part one of that. That's the first 8 games. So we'll take you through all of those. Part 2 will be coming out tomorrow when you hear this. So keep an eye out for that as well. We'll take you through the next 8 games. Before that, though, I do want to give a quick shout out to BenchBoss. Again, you might know them as ViewPick. They have changed their name, but they are still the revolutionary app that allows you to play fantasy football live while watching the game on TV. Predict the plays, the result of the play, and literally play fantasy football. You can sign up for the beta now by going to letstalkfantasyfootball.com/benchboss. I also want to let you guys know that if you are listeners every single week, you do enjoy the podcast, please subscribe to us on iTunes. Give us a review if you'd like to. And then we do have the Let's Talk Fantasy Football apps for iOS, for Android, and they are compatible with your Amazon Echo. Those are free. They're pretty useful, so make sure you check them out. Before we do get into these games, I want to give a quick anecdote. And Vinny, I don't think I've told you this story, but I had a nice thing happen this week. That's another example of why fantasy football is so great and why you should try and talk as much trash as you possibly can in your leagues. So this past week, I was playing my good friend Adam in a league, which is mostly myself and some grad school friends, but also some of the coworkers of the person who set up the league, some girlfriends of people in the league, whatever else. So there's guys and girls, it's some people I know well, some people I don't know real well. So Adam and I got drunk on Friday and we were playing each other and we decided to make a bet on our matchup this past week, a nice little side bet to spice things up. So the side bet was that the loser, in my case, and I'll spoil this, I lost. In my case, I have to make a video, and I haven't done it yet, but I will. I'm a man of my word. So I now have to send a video to the entire rest of the group. Again, some people that I don't know very well. And that video is going to be me, one, saying Chris Collinsworth is a bad announcer because Adam doesn't like him, which fuck that. I know, right? I don't
like that at all. That sucks.
2, saying that Rajon Rondo is a Hall of Fame point guard because we argue over that all the time. And then 3, shotgunning a beer. And sending that video. The catch is that all of this has to be done while I am in nothing but my underwear. So that'll be an interesting video. We'll see how it goes over. But just wanted to share that as another one of those things where it's like, this is the wonderful things that fantasy football does to you. It allows you to send videos of yourself in your underwear to people that you hardly know. So anyway, Vinny, now that I've gotten that out of the way and I've indulged myself, let's get fucking into the game. Start me off with the Thursday night game, man. What do we got here this week?
Oh, just the oldest rivalry in the NFL. The Chicago Bears are coming to town against the Packers, and Green Bay is favored by 7, and the over and under is 45.5. So a modest game here. I'm having a hard time judging this. The Packers had a tough game against the Bengals on Sunday. Short week. The Bears are riding high off that win against the Steelers, which was awesome. and I'm worried about Jordan Howard's health. So I'm having a rough time with this one, kind of deciding what's going on. And for the other injuries to go over, Randall Cobb should be playing. Jordy Nelson is, I don't think, on the injury report anymore. A lot of guys for the defense for the Packers are missing. And then Jordan Howard is also off, but he also left the game a bunch of times. So I wanted to get your thought on, like, how do you think Jordan Howard is going to perform?
I think that's the toughest thing to predict about this game this week. Jordan Howard, I don't think anyone expected his breakout this past week. And honestly, that whole fucking game, like, the Bears beat the Steelers, and fucking Mike Glennon has 4 targets to wide receivers, only completes 1 of them. Like, they don't get in. The Bears defense doesn't get a single interception, and they somehow put up 24 points and win. I don't get it. I would think this week that Jordan Howard is the second best play on the Bears out of their running backs. I think Tariq Cohen is a better play against this Packers defense in a game where you would expect the Packers to hopefully go up, though then again, their offense hasn't been as good as we really thought it was going to be so far this year. So I think Tariq Cohen's the better play of them. That being said, I think the Bears are kind of an offense where week to week, Jordan Howard doesn't really have a floor, but I think you're probably starting both Bears running backs week to week. I read a stat today that 67% of the touches, so catches and carries on the Bears have been from Howard and Cohen, which is insane. That's such a huge portion of the offense.
That's all they got.
I think despite the fact that they're a bad team, you're starting both of them, and maybe Howard isn't going to pan out because they're being very closed doors-ish about the injury, but we'll see, I suppose.
Yeah, I just feel like a lot of people that may have benched Howard, a.k.a. Matt last week, will put him in now and then be disappointed with the results. But the one positive thing out of playing Jordan Howard is the Packers' run D should be a little banged up with Mike. Actually, I'm not sure if Mike Daniels will be back, but
yeah, I'm not aware of his status at this point in time.
I think he's questionable. So keep an eye on that. Just keep an eye on that, and then just keep tabs on that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'll look up Mike Daniels here in a moment, but if my computer stops freaking out, okay, I'm going to not touch it for a second. So basically, outside of that, I think the only other player to discuss on the Bears is Zach Miller. His targets have kind of fluctuated. This past week, he really didn't do anything. Is he a guy that you're considering starting if you're thin at tight end?
There are other guys I like this week that I'll say that, and I wouldn't want to play him in this Thursday night matchup.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's the right call for what it's worth. So then moving over to the Packers side of the ball, because, again, you can't play any Bears wide receivers. We talked about how Cobb is likely going to be back. That means Geronimo Allison, the one week darling of the fantasy world, I suppose. He's not really relevant anymore. So what we do have is, the typical guys basically for the Packers. We've got Ty Montgomery, you're starting Jordy Nelson, you're starting Devontae Adams, and you're probably starting Randall Cobb. Do you agree with that? Or
yeah, I would play Cobb. I would play all your Packers.
Okay, and then what do you think of Adams? Because I know there's been a little bit of rumblings in the fantasy world about him. Through 3 weeks, he hasn't really had a breakout performance yet. Do you think he's still an every week guy, or are you a little worried about him?
I think you're playing him every week, but I am a little worried about him. So it's a little bit of both for me. I thought his game against the Falcons was pretty good. I mean, the touchdown definitely saved him on that huge pass, but
right. And I mean, part of that I think was the fact that Cobb and Nelson were both out at that point.
Yeah. That's the thing with him. Now that everybody's back on the Packers, it's back to their old way of like, hey, we got to spread and distribute the ball around. So Devontae Adams is kind of lower on the totem pole than Jordy Nelson and even Randall Cobb at times.
Yeah, I this year he is averaging about 7 targets a game. So, until further notice, I think he's a guy. 7 targets a game with Aaron Rodgers is a starter on your fantasy team for the most part. But it's interesting, and I think I'm going to be saying that about a lot of people this year. Is that you're probably starting them, but man, they don't necessarily have that floor that you want. There's really just not that much consistency in the fantasy world so far this year.
Yeah. Walsh, you kind of sound like, would you be looking to trade Adams if you're an Adams owner?
I don't know. I mean, I'll say this: if he goes off this week, then yeah, I would definitely be looking to trade him. And I actually did trade him just yesterday in one league, so maybe I would be.
But it sounds like you are if you did it. So.
Yeah. It would be hard. He was part of an offer that was sent to me in that league, and it was a larger trade. That being said, if Adams does go off this week, I think I'd be looking to trade him. Maybe, depending on what your team needs, particularly if you're in need of a running back and you can unload him for a running back. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah. Nice. And I wouldn't start any of the tight ends for the Packers.
No. There were rumblings last week that Martellus Bennett, would be a good play against the Bengals, who had kind of struggled against tight end, and Lance Kendricks got the touchdown, and I think Martellus Bennett ended with 12 yards. So that didn't work. But what can you do, I suppose? Let's pick this one. I'm taking the Packers.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Packers as well.
Cool. So that's a Thursday night game. We'll move on to Sunday morning. We got another London game, so make sure you're up nice and early for that 6:30 a.m. Pacific time kickoff. I hate those games, man. I know on the East Coast it's kind of like you can wake up and like roll into it. For me, man, that is not that cool.
Yeah, even I had a rough time. I had a little too much fun on Saturday and then kind of woke up at 10. So I missed the initial thing, but I made sure I was like, all right, no Ravens, no fucking Jaguars this week.
Yeah, I did the same sort of thing, and I woke up and like looked at the score of that game and was like, I don't have to watch this right now. Yeah,
no, dude. It was actually crazy to wake up to. I was just like, oh, cool. Mercedes Lewis has 3 touchdowns. I'm going to go back to sleep.
Yeah, this is not the way I wanted to start my Sunday, but what can you do? So anyway, we have another London game. This one is interesting, and it feels like, I feel like stereotypical saying it, but fuck Matt and Don regarding this game. It's the Saints and the Dolphins. The Saints are a 2.5-point favorite now. The over-under is 49.5. We'll start on the Dolphins side. I know Jay Cutler was theoretically a good play this past week, and he didn't work out. He's theoretically a way better play this week. And I'm going back to the well. I know Roger said you should not be starting him again in fantasy. I'm doing it, and I'm going to play him in daily. I'm going to play him all over the place. It's a good matchup. And I know Cam Newton just disappointed in this matchup, but if we can't start quarterbacks against the Saints, who the fuck can we start him against?
Nobody, dude. But yeah, Cutler's still a good play. The only thing about daily fantasy for Cutler, I would be worried that his price might be a little on the higher side if they're just doing it based off matchup. So he might be a fade in some circumstances there, but that's a whole other fucking thing.
It. And I mean, I normally don't even put lineups in the slate with, the London game. So I would have to specifically go out of my way to play Cutler in that slate, which might not be the best strategy, honestly.
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm picking up Cutler, and by the time you listen to this, I will have picked up Cutler in several leagues. So there you go. I'm going to go for it.
It's a good play, man. It's a good play. And I bet a lot of people, if they used him last week, are probably dropping him now because they're angry.
Yeah, and like part of what I was saying, earlier with that story about Adam and my thing there is fantasy football shouldn't all be based on numbers like we want it to be, and like that's great, but like in some of your more casual leagues, go based on emotion. I will play Jay Cutler out of spite in casual leagues all day. Like this just I'm willing to do that. So I don't know. I'm gonna play him. In terms of rebounds though as well, what do you think about Ajayi? I really don't know what to make of him in this game.
So this is a little weird because he's not practicing with that bone bruise from last week. So I mean, how could you not like him against like the Saints? And it's probably going to be a high scoring game. I think if he's active, you're playing him. I just don't know if he's going to log any practices, and that's a little scary, but you kind of knew the health concerns when you were drafting Jay Ajayi. So if he's active, just throw him out there. It's against for the fucking Saints. He'll have a good game.
Yeah, I think you have to play him. It's definitely a little worrisome and uncomfortable going into it, but as long as he's going to play, you're playing him. In terms of their targets, we saw for the second straight week, really, all of these guys were very involved in the offense. All of them being Landry, Parker, and Kenny Stills had 10 plus targets. I know not all of them produced. Parker did, but I don't see any reason that the Dolphins wouldn't be throwing a lot again against the Saints. And I don't see any reason that all three of these guys wouldn't be involved. So I'm like kind of cool with playing all of them, even Kenny Stills.
I'm a little off on Kenny Stills, but I totally get what you're saying. And I pretty much agree on everyone but Stills. I just think he's a risky play that I'd rather not do.
That's fair. He's definitely got the lowest floor out of all of them just because he sees the least snaps and gets the least targets. But yeah, I'm kind of cool with that. Outside of that, you're not playing Julius Thomas. He hasn't shown anything that would make you think it would be a good idea to play him. So let's move over to the New Orleans side of the ball. Obviously, Drew Brees is a play. What about this backfield, though? We saw Ingram really take over in terms of leading the touches, the carries, the targets, and then Kamara got the touchdown. So what do you think about this backfield this week against Miami?
It was very, very typical of the Saints to do that. So I'm going to roll out Mark Ingram. The matchup actually is surprisingly not great for him because Miami's been pretty tough against the run in their 2 games that they've played so far. But I do like him as a play. Like Mark Ingram has a very solid floor. So I'm throwing him out there. He's been around like 9-10 points, depending PPR, half PPR. So his floor is the best out of that group. You're not playing Peterson. He's only getting like 9 touches a game. And Kamara, the riskiest of flexes. Like I wouldn't even touch that. So Ingram's your guy this week there.
Yeah, very much agreed. I think you hit the nail on the head. Kamara's a desperation guy if you really need it. And I think Ingram's a pretty safe start. I've been starting him every week in one league where, I went late on running back, and my makeshift backfield of Ingram and James White has honestly been pretty solid. So I'm going to continue to roll with that. The wide receivers, we've got Willie Snead coming back. So, yes. We've seen Brandon Coleman do pretty well. Ted Ginn's shown flashes. And then Michael Thomas really broke out this past week. How does Snead coming back affect these guys? And then what do you think about him as a play this week?
I think you're absolutely playing Snead. I mean, you drafted him to do this, so I would throw him in immediately. Michael Thomas is great. I think he's not too affected by this. And then I think Ted Ginn returns to that, like, deep shot kind of role, which he really had, but the odd man out here is definitely Brandon Coleman. I think he kind of just rides the bench again. So I'm definitely playing Snead, Thomas, and then Ted Ginn is kind of like on the opposite side of the field. It'll be Kenny Stills. It's the same exact play.
So if you're desperate, say at your flex position, which of these 3 is your top guy for this week? Is it Kenny Stills, Alvin Kamara, or Ted Ginn?
That is difficult as hell, and I think I'm leaning Kenny Stills.
That's what I would say as well. And I would also probably put Ginn ahead of Kamara, at least in straight-up PPR. But thought it was an interesting thought exercise, if nothing else. And I'm sorry, you might have said this, but are you starting Snead if you have him?
Yes, 100%.
You are? Okay, cool. And can we agree that the Fleener experiment is over?
Yes, he is bad. And now that Willie Snead is going to go over the middle and stuff like that, it's just the targets are going to drift his way, I think, because, Fleener's not good.
Yeah, the only reason to play Fleener over the past couple of weeks was because Snead was gone. So now that Snead is back, you don't really need to. Vinny, who you got in this one?
Ooh, I'm going to take the Saints.
I'm going to take the Dolphins just because I want to.
I know. Follow your heart, man.
Yeah, I will take the Dolphins out of spite, just like play Jay Cutler out of spite. All right, moving on to the early slate of games. We'll start with Carolina at New England. New England is a 9-point favorite here. I'm honestly surprised it's not a higher spread because Carolina has looked like garbage. This over-under is 48.5. Are you holding on to Cam? Are you playing him anymore?
No, I am not. I think Matt and Shrek were talking about this. He's not fucking healthy. And I think it's pretty obvious to people that watch football. It's like
Yes.
you look at him and he's not Cam. So it's just, it's a little sad. It's just not going to work out. They need to put him on like the Andrew Luck plan and just like swallow your fucking pride, bench your superstar, get him healthy, bring him back, and then your team will be good again.
Yeah, honestly, throw in the towel for this whole year if you need to, if it's going to get Cam healthy. There's just, he's out there and he's not running. He's sailing every throw. He's obviously not able to plant correctly on that foot. So, there's no reason to start him on your fantasy team anymore. There's so many better plays out there that you can do or that you can make. One thing that was interesting this past week, and I think it might have been a result, that's the word I'm looking for, of Kelvin Benjamin getting hurt, was that Christian McCaffrey got 11 targets. So, Benjamin's status is unclear at this point going forward. Are you buying that McCaffrey is going to be more involved in the pass game going forward?
I think in this game he absolutely will, because they're going to be down a ton. So I think they're going to do a lot of those outs and stuff like that. So I think it's a little nuts to think he's going to get those 11 targets again in this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets somewhere between 8 or 9, which is great. That's what you wanted him for. So as long as the opportunity is there, this is going to probably be a blowout on New England's side. So he'll be getting a lot of dump offs, and I like him as a play this week.
Yeah, I do as well. I don't think you should be playing Jonathan Stewart this week with that big of a spread. What do you think there? Yeah,
I completely agree. We thought, well, I kind of thought last week that Stewart was a good play, and it just kind of didn't pan out. So, when it's against the Saints and you can't get it done, I wouldn't play him against New England.
Very fair. And then I guess the last guy we need to talk about, Devin Funchess, with Benjamin out, did have 10 targets. He didn't really do a ton with them. Do you have any interest in him, or is it just you're tired of it?
I don't want to play them. I don't want to play anybody. Like even Curtis Samuel. I wouldn't want to play him. Funchess, if Benjamin's out, maybe I would consider it. But I really wouldn't be looking to do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think he's, maybe a desperation guy. I'd probably play him above the Kenny Stills and Ted Gins of the world. But it's tough because, and that's only if Benjamin is out this week.
Right.
So keep an eye on that, and we'll see what happens. On the New England side of the ball, are the Pats just a start everyone team now?
I think they are, because we saw that last week. Like they spread it around so much, they throw it so much, and then you could get lucky on like that Gillislee rushing TD. So I think it is safe to say you could start all your Patriot starters week to week.
Yeah, I mean Burkhead is out, and with Burkhead out, I think you can play Gillislee, James White, Chris Hogan, Brandon Cooks, and Gronk, and obviously Tom Brady, and be pretty comfortable starting all of them pretty much every week.
And throw in Amendola too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that works, I guess. And I mean, the thing is, you should not every single one of them is going to produce every week, but I think they're all worth a start. As we kind of alluded to earlier, shit's kind of wonky this year, and there are a lot of people who are very up and down. I've been thinking about it a lot. I don't think I've ever seen such an up and down start to the season by so many different teams and so many different players, to where one week they're terrible and then the next week they go the fuck off. And it seems like that's been happening to pretty much every team. So if you're looking for consistency, so far 2017 isn't the year to find it. And the Pats are pretty much a start everyone team now.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And that's what makes it so exciting, Walsh.
So exciting and so frustrating. I was so upset. The thing was, this past weekend, in terms of pure football games, was probably the most fun slate of games in a very long time. And I was just sitting there so mad because I was playing all my teams were bombing, all my DFS teams were bombing. Fucking then the Raiders come out and lose. But anyway, we'll move on from here. I'm taking New England.
Same.
All right, and then let's get into the Rams at the Cowboys. This is a 7-point spread in favor of Dallas. The over-under is 46.5. Is Goff a streamer for you now? Is he a starter for you now? How do you view him?
I would stream him. We saw Palmer on Monday night kind of carve them up while he wasn't getting like sacked every other fucking play. So while he had time, he was destroying Dallas. So I think the Rams have a better offensive line. They're definitely healthier than the Cardinals and what we saw on Monday night. So if Goff is going to be upright, he'll probably carve up Dallas. So I like him as one of the streaming options this week.
Yeah, I think he should be a pretty solid streaming option. That projected point a little worrisome, but Goff has been used pretty well, and he's done well so far this season. Obviously Gurley at this point is an every week start. Even in a game like this, he's been getting passing work, so you have to keep going with him. And then right now, Sammy Watkins is in the concussion protocol. Maybe by the time you listen to this, that's changed, but right now we don't know his status for this week. So two scenarios here. Watkins does play. What do you think are the pass catchers that you want to play on this team? And then if he doesn't, does that open things up for you in terms of maybe taking a look at a Robert Woods or a Cooper Kupp?
So if he does play, I'm playing Watkins, throwing him out there. And then I'd kind of be scared off of the other guys. I mean, we saw Robert Woods have a great game on Thursday night. Cooper Kupp kind of disappeared, but when Watkins is active, I think he's the main go-to guy. And if you want to play Woods in that scenario, it's kind of desperate. So if Watkins is out, absolutely play Robert Woods, like 100%, I think, because he was getting all the targets while Watkins was out. And then Cooper Kupp, I would be really, so I probably just wouldn't at that point.
Okay, that's fair. I think if Watkins is out, I'd be willing to throw out there both Woods and Kupp. But it's a difficult decision. And then I think you're right. If Watkins does play, I'm willing to play him, but it's tough. Woods and Watkins both had great games. They both each only had 7 targets. And I know, I was talking about how 7 targets from Aaron Rodgers is an every week starter earlier. I don't know that 7 targets from Jared Goff, even though we now like him as a streamer, is an every week starting wide receiver. So it's a little difficult in terms of that. Moving on to the Dallas side of the ball, obviously Zeke is still a play. He always is. But are you comfortable with Dez and potentially Jason Witten going forward? I know Dez got that touchdown, but Dez had 2 targets this past week. So I don't know. What do you think there?
That was very worrisome. Obviously, we've pegged Dez as the guy that's going to have like the toughest schedule maybe ever for a wide receiver this year. So he got very lucky last week, and you can't sit Dez, so you're just throwing him out there. But again, I forget his goddamn name, but the corner on the Rams is very good and will probably have Dez most of the game. So
Trumaine Jackson, is that it, or is EJ?
No.
Fuck.
Either way, he's going to have a tough outing. So I would temper your expectations, but of course, you just got to roll Dez out there.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. What about Witten? He had been kind of a darling the first 2 weeks with his huge amounts of targets. He didn't really do it this past week. Are you looking to play him at all?
That was Tremaine Johnson. That's who it is. And Witten, I kind of didn't buy into it before, and then that definitely paid off for me last week when I didn't play him in certain leagues for his 1 catch and 3 yards. So this is what you're going to get from Witten. Sometimes he'll have crazy games and sometimes he won't. He'll just have bum games. And I'm kind of just off Witten as a tight end.
Yeah, I think there are other guys who I would rather play, the Charles Clays of the world, that sort of thing. And then we got to talk about him because he's our boy. Bryce Butler had 90 yards and was it 2 touchdowns?
Almost right? 2, because he got touchdown by the Honey Badger.
So 90 yards, 1 touchdown. He only did it on 2 catches and 2 targets, though. Do you have any interest in our boy Christ Butler going forward?
Nice. Maybe in really deep leagues or Dynasty or something, because when I look at this, I would love to pick up Bryce Butler. But all they want to do is play Terrence Williams, and Terrence Williams has not done anything really. And when I see Bryce Butler out there, I'm like, why the fuck isn't this guy on the field all the time?
Dude, it's so frustrating.
It's horrible because
really
he's definitely way
like,
more talented than Terrence Williams.
I'm sure Terrence Williams like runs crisp routes and like is in the right place at the right time or whatever.
No,
but, like,
he's not.
Bryce Butler gets down the field and like goes up and like dunks on people, basically. Bryce Butler is awesome, and I'm so upset that he doesn't get more of an opportunity. Anyway,
yeah, I completely agree.
It's, at this point, he's not a guy you want to pick up in fantasy. He's just a guy that you want to be like, oh, shit, when he makes a sick touchdown catch. Anything else we need to talk about with this game or the Cowboys?
I don't think so.
All right, who you got in this one?
I'm going to go Cowboys.
I'm taking the upset. Let's go Rams.
Nice. I like that.
All right, guys. So that was the first 4 games. We're going to get a quick word here from our pals at BenchBoss, and we'll be right back.
This year, dominate your friends with free play-by-play fantasy football from BenchBoss. BenchBoss is the first play-by-play fantasy football game where you must think like the players and coaches on the field as you predict the outcome of every play. Earn rewards as you compete against friends and fans across the country. BenchBoss is currently recruiting beta testers, and we need you. Visit benchboss.tv to learn more and sign up today.
All right, guys, that again was BenchBoss. Make sure you are checking them out. We're going to get right back into the next 4 games on the slate here, and we're going to start with Detroit at Minnesota. There's currently no Vegas line yet because of the lack of clarity on the Sam Bradford situation. So we'll start on the Detroit side of the ball. Stafford had a pretty decent game this past week. Golden Tate did as well. Do you buy them continuing that up against this Minnesota defense?
It is going to be tough. Minnesota at home is kind of like how the Seahawks were a couple years ago, like that whole new fucking stadium and just it's loud as shit. Their defense is fucking good. So, I don't know if I would want to like Golden Tate. You have to play, obviously, but if you're looking to stream somebody or play Matt Stafford, I would not do it.
Yeah, I'm not really on Stafford this week. I don't think he's the best. The best quarterback to target. I thought he was great this past week, and he was
robbed of a touchdown.
Dude, I thought that was such a bad call. It was like
it was so close, and all they do is preach about not making a crazy call like that when it's it's not clear, and then they just kind of pull a game ender and then run 10 seconds off and ruin the game.
Yeah, and the Stafford Tate stacks that I had in daily, fucking.
I mean, they did just fine. Don't be greedy, Walsh.
But I mean, you're losing 10 points right on that. It's that's the difference between doubling up your money and multiplying your money by 10. But whatever. Anyway, I'll stop being bitter. I'm not on Bradford this week. I am still on Tate though. He's really shown to be the most consistent guy in this passing offense.
Yeah, I think the other pass catchers there aren't worthy of starting. Marvin Jones is probably going to draw Xavier Woods. That sucks. And then Kenny Golladay is going to be running around somewhere, not catching touchdowns anymore. So I wouldn't play. I wouldn't play any of those guys.
You know what else is the frustrating thing about this past week, and I'm gonna complain about this. I was really on Stafford, Tate, Riddick, and Ebron. Tate, Riddick, and Ebron led the team in targets. Tate had 11, Riddick had 9, Ebron had 7. Ebron just dropped clutch balls at the end of the game because he fucking sucks, and I'm tired of him. And then Riddick was theoretically a great play, got 9 targets, and just didn't do anything with them. So what about these two guys this week? Ebron, I think you can drop. I think the dream has died for me. But, yeah.
I would love to keep dreaming, but I think reality is right this time. I think Ebron is, even when he gets the opportunity, if he's dropping passes, come on, dude. It's hard enough to pick a fucking tight end. Please catch your targets.
Yeah.
That being said, I wouldn't play him. The matchup's rough, so I guess if you have to drop him to pick up somebody else, which I'd probably play a lot of startling names over Ebron. Probably play guys like Jesse James or Cameron Brate. They have better matchups.
Great this week, yeah.
They have way better matchups. So if you're tired of Ebron, I guess like us, very reluctantly, you could drop him and stream some tight end, get in on the roulette.
Yeah, absolutely. Regarding Riddick and those running backs. Riddick's still getting the majority of snaps. Abdullah, however, is getting the majority of the carries, and then Riddick's getting, the passing work. He's getting those targets. I don't really like any of them this week. That Minnesota defense is pretty solid, as you said. They're on the road. I don't see the reason to start any of the Detroit running backs.
See, I think you can get away with Riddick again, like as a flex play, just because he'll get targeted. It's frustrating, right? Like, because you want to play him. The matchup is bad, so that means good for Theo Riddick, I think, which is always hard to judge, but I think that's the way I'm leaning. Okay,
that's a fair take, and I will readily admit I have a lot of recency bias in my take on him, because I played him all over the place, both in regular season long leagues and in DFS this past week, thinking it was the best possible matchup, and he didn't do shit. So I'm definitely bitter about that, and I'm aware of that. So listen to Vinny's well-reasoned take on this as opposed to my bitter nonsense. Anyway, let's move on to the Vikings. So Detroit's kind of sneakily been a good pass defense this year. They're fifth in DVOA, which is Football Outsiders stat, in pass defense. We saw Case Keenum go nuts this past week. The dude who won the Millie Maker on DraftKings did it with a Case Keenum lineup, which is fucking absurd and makes me furious. Yeah, wow. Right. A Keenum dig stack won a guy $1 million. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's how you earn something. That's the way.
I don't know, man. To me, that's clicking buttons and seeing. I don't know, but
dude, when you click Case Keenum at the bottom of the fucking quarterback list, you know what you're doing.
Against the Bucks, who just had a great week against Mike Glennon. I don't know. Anyway, football hasn't made sense to me this year so far, so I'm being bitter again. But this week the Detroit defense has been pretty good, particularly Darius Slay, who covers number one wide receivers, aka Stephon Diggs, and particularly Quandre Diggs, another Diggs, who is their slot corner, who will be covering Adam Thielen. So I think you're still starting Thielen and Diggs, but it's a little bit of a tough matchup, and definitely don't go out and pick up Case Keenum. What are your thoughts on this?
Everything you said is very valid. You definitely have to play Diggs. He's just too good to sit. Thielen, I think you could probably find a better option.
That's probably true.
I really believe that. So yeah, like Diggs is a superstar, so you have to play him. I know Darius Slay is a shitty matchup, but Diggs is good enough. He'll get enough targets. Thielen is, he's had like good games, but like last year is still dwelling in the back of my mind, where he was very hard to predict. And I feel like that's going to start happening soon in the middle of the season. And I feel like this is one of those games where you can sit him and play someone else.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, you're probably right on that. And then Dalvin Cook in the run game, I think he's an every week start at this point. This week does not change that.
Absolutely. He's
what
very
do you think?
Good.
Yeah, for sure. We were wrong about him. What do you think about Kyle Rudolph? I think you can cut him.
Man, tight end is so gross. If you're making a cut, there has to be another guy that just like wasn't picked up. Maybe like a
Cameron Brate.
Yeah, no. See, because that's like in the streaming shit. Like
Austin Safarian Jenkins.
That is garbage. I would definitely keep Rudolph, dude. I want some washed up drunk. I'm kidding. I love what ASJ has done.
Hey man, 6 targets this past week. We'll talk about that soon enough.
Yeah. No, I was being a dick there, but I would definitely keep Kyle Rudolph on your team. You drafted him, and you're lucky enough to have a guy with like high upside. He's athletic as shit, and once Bradford gets back, they should be clicking. So I would just suffer the loss. Like, is Kyle Rudolph any better than any piece of shit you're going to pick up right now?
No.
Exactly.
All right, fair enough. Let's pick this one. I'm going to take the Vikings.
Yeah, I was going to go Vikings as well.
All right, moving on to Tennessee at Houston. The next 3 games we're going to go through are going to be kind of gross. So we'll start with Tennessee at Houston. Tennessee is a 1-point favorite. That's a 44 over/under. Not too much offense expected in this one. On Tennessee's side of the ball, we've seen the Murray-Henry split really be close to 50-50 in terms of work. I know Murray's getting slightly more snaps at this point, but is this another team like the Bears where you're willing to roll out both of them, or am I jumping the gun on that?
I think you're jumping the gun a little bit. It's kind of like I think I compared this a few times, Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman kind of deal, where the snaps are somewhat close, but when you look at overall what they're doing, Murray far outweighs Henry in the work share. So I think I'm playing Murray constantly. Derrick Henry's that guy. He's still just kind of a handcuff kind of dude for me. He usually breaks a run when, the Titans are up and it's like the third or fourth quarter. So I'm trying not to be fooled by that stuff. If you're a DeMarco Murray owner and someone has Derrick Henry, of course I would try and go get him. If you're Derrick Henry and you don't have DeMarco Murray, I would try to trade that guy for him. So I believe in Murray, and I think they want to feed him exclusively as like a number one still. I don't think it's Derrick Henry time yet.
Okay, that's fair. I think Henry's closer, to really being a starter. And I think he is a guy who you could throw in your flex or your RB2 on certain weeks. I don't know if this week is the week, though. In the passing game, Mariota looked good this past week in what was theoretically a bad matchup. And we see that Rashard Matthews is really still the guy. We thought it would be Decker. We thought it would be Davis, which Davis is obviously hurt. But it's Rashard Matthews now. In this matchup, I don't think I'm really looking to start Mariota. I'd probably start Matthews if I needed to, and I don't think there's anyone else that I would.
Yeah, I'm in a situation where I drafted Matthews, haven't played him yet, and he's been great. Last week he had a great game because he broke out that screen on like a busted play where Seattle went off sides. So his stuff is a little skewed because that play was absolutely crazy.
Right.
Corey Davis has been ruled out with the hamstring.
He is out for this week.
Yeah, so
okay.
Delaney Walker's day-to-day with the hamstring issue. So it's really the only healthy guys on the team that still have hamstrings are Rashard Matthews and Eric Decker. So I like Rashard Matthews. He's been getting somewhere from usually like 7 to 8 targets a game. So I like that. I think I'm going to roll him out finally and probably get burned. But I do like the matchup sort of because Houston's kind of been vulnerable through the air. I think Decker's a guy that is fringing on the sittable side. I mean, I think at this point you could probably sit him for a better option. It's just there's been too many mouths to feed, I want to say, and just he hasn't been hitting that 80 yards and a touchdown kind of deal that he has in the past.
Yeah, I think that's been the issue is that Decker's always been a guy who's really made his hay in the red zone, and so far he hasn't really been used in the red zone. So until that happens, you don't really need to play him. If Delaney Walker goes, obviously he's a play, and I think that pretty much does it, I guess, for the Titans, right?
Yeah, I think that
all right, cool.
Wraps it up.
Let's move on to the Houston side of the ball. Deshaun Watson is getting closer and closer for me to being an interesting streamer. I don't think this is the week necessarily to do it. In the run game, though, I know Rogers and Shrek talked a little bit about Deontay Foreman versus Lamar Miller. I am still firmly on the side of Lamar Miller.
Shocking.
So I have reason to. He's still getting 70% of the snaps. He's out carrying him by a lot. He's out targeting him by a lot. He's just getting the majority of the work. I know Deontay Foreman's broken some big plays. Talent equals, increased opportunity as the season goes on. But as of right now, Lamar Miller's still the guy there. So while Deontay Foreman should certainly be owned, I don't think you should be benching Lamar Miller at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally against you. I think Foreman over the course of like the rest of the season will probably earn a lot more work. But right now, you're absolutely right. And I think this kind of mirrors last year, very ironically, DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. Like Henry would break a bunch of big plays and everyone would be like, oh, he's going to be the fucking starter. And I feel like that's what people are saying about Foreman, like nipping at Lamar Miller's role. So it's one of those situations where you keep Foreman. I would be scared to play him. I'm actually a little scared to play Lamar Miller though. And the matchup is not good this week. Are you rolling him out?
Yeah, I'd be willing to.
All right, fair enough. I really don't know what I would do. I mean, running backs, pretty shitty. So I think
it's gross.
Yeah, I think you're pretty stuck with Lamar Miller, especially where you probably took him somewhere in the third.
Fair enough. All right, and then let's move on to the pass game. Will Fuller is practicing and hoping to play. He's worth an add in most leagues, but I wouldn't be starting him by any means. Hopkins is obviously a start. And then weirdly enough, Ryan Griffin had a nice game. Are you buying into him as maybe a tight end to pick up?
Ooh. See, whenever a tight end has a game like that and they're Ryan Griffin, I immediately don't want to pick them up for next week because he's going to get like 2 points. So I would be very scared to play him. And like the over under is saying, like this is probably going to be a low scoring game. So I'm gonna not do that.
Fair enough. I think I'm on your side there. Who do you got in this one?
I am going to go with I'd like to pick the upset, but I'm going to go with the Titans.
All right, I'm going to go with the Titans as well. I think Mariota's good.
Yes.
All right, let's move on here to the Jaguars at the Jets. Gross. The Jaguars are a 3.5-point favorite. It is a 39.5 over under. That's not good for those of you keeping score at home.
Oh, holy shit. That is bad.
Yeah. So this is, Vegas expects this to be a close, low-scoring game. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, I think this is a great Fournette spot, even though Ajayi is coming off a bad week against the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, Fournette, that's their offense. They're gonna run it right through him, and he's bound to break something. And he's hit the end zone every game so far, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so why wouldn't you hit it against the Jets, especially when the Jags defense, who is also a great play, are probably gonna destroy the Jets.
Yeah, that seems to be what you would think Doug Marrone would want the game script to be: get his defense out there, get some turnovers, run the ball with Fournette. Marquise Lee has led the wide receivers in targets for a couple weeks straight here. Are you willing to roll him out at wide receiver?
Honestly, I'm still going to lean Hearns. I know Lee is getting the majority of the targets, and I guess that's going to have to hit eventually, and this would probably be a good game. But if you're a Hearns owner, I think I would throw him out because they use him a lot more in the red zone than Marquise Lee. I think Marquise Lee, in order to score or have a huge payoff for you fantasy wise, is going to have to hit the touchdown on like a long pass play.
Okay, that's fair. This doesn't project to be a game where Bortles is slinging the pig around, so it's probably not the best Marquise Lee game, to be honest. And you're right, Hearns does have a better chance of getting in the end zone than Lee does. You talked about Mercedes Lewis, or is he an option for you?
No. Absolutely not. Jesus
Christ. Cool. Me neither, man.
Did that guy that played Case Keenum, did he also have Mercedes Lewis in his lineup?
I don't think so. No, because it was a main slate one, and that was the early, that game wasn't on the slate.
I bet some sick fuck out there definitely did that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Some guy won a lot of money on Mercedes Lewis this past week. Fucking asshole. All right, Jets side of the ball. We've got Matt Forte week to week. He's expected to miss this game. I think Powell's a must-play this week.
Wow, that's drastic from I want to mirror that to like our last recap podcast.
Yeah, where I basically said you can't play Powell. No, but I mean, this is the kind of thing that he needs, where Forte is not going to play. Mm-hmm. Elijah McGuire is going to get some work, but you would think Powell is going to get the majority of the snaps. He got the majority of the snaps this past week, which was also a change from previous weeks. So, yeah, I'm on Powell this week.
Cool. It's just I agree. It's just it's a rough matchup, and I don't really know what they're going to do. I would think they would feature Powell, but just because like McGuire fumbled too last week, I don't know if they want to deal with that shit. And actually, also we forgot to mention they signed Travaris Cadet today. So
right, but
I'm thinking. I mean, he's not going to. I can't even see if he's going to be active. Like he just got there, so
that would totally. Sorry. Go ahead.
We're jumping over each other for the worst matchup of the week.
No, I need to talk about.
I really have to talk about Travaris Cadet's role, dude. I really have to talk about it. I don't even want to fucking talk about it anymore. Just whatever. Play Powell. I agree.
What I was going to say is if I play Powell and like whatever, and Travaris Cadet is just stealing targets from him, I'm going to jump off my balcony. But
fair, very fair.
All right, so Jets wide receivers. Curse was the guy the first 2 weeks. Robbie Anderson was the guy this past week. Do you want to play any of them?
No, and you know who I saw last week, who I haven't seen in a while? Jeremy Curley running around again. I completely forgot. I think he was finally healthy and ready to play. So
he had played the weeks before. He just hadn't really gotten involved in the offense much.
Dude, I didn't see him once watching those games for the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, he's around. He's doing things. None of them should be started though.
Yeah, see, that's like Curse was cool for a little bit, and if you played him, like more power to you. But now it's going to get muddled, and I think it's like you said, don't play any of them.
Yeah, and then the last guy on the Jets that we need to talk about, I think if you're in a tight end spot, you're picking up ASJ.
Yeah, I know I called him a bum, and I think really meanly, if that's a word, a drunk. So I'm going to say sorry, and you could definitely play him. The Jags are definitely susceptible to the tight end. So,
if that isn't the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Being really mean. I don't play professional football, Walsh. I just talk about it with you.
Right. So it's okay that we're drunks. But anyway,
absolutely.
ASJ got 6 targets in his first game back from suspension. We know he's talented. We know he's got those physical skills. I'm willing to roll him out there at this point. Tight end sucks. We've talked about it all night so far. So, yeah, worth a look for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Who you got in this game?
I got to go Jags.
Yeah, me too. I'm not going to pick the Jets to be 2-2.
Yeah.
All right. Last game before we get into some reader or listener, rather, questions. Cincinnati at Cleveland. So Cincinnati on the road, a 3-point favorite. The over-under is 40. Not expected to be a high-scoring game. For Cincinnati, we saw their offense really get on target. It seemed like this past weekend. Andy Dalton was pretty good. A.J. Green had a very good game. And they gave the majority of the running back work to Joe Mixon. Are you starting Joe Mixon this week, Vinny?
I think it's finally time. To start Joe Mixon. You saw what you wanted to see at the beginning of the season, you saw against the Packers, which was Joe Mixon getting so many carries, and then Gio Bernard being lightly involved, and then Jeremy Hill sucking. So that's what you wanted, and I think Joe Mixon is a good play. I would imagine that the Bengals will finally win this game, and you can roll them out there, and they'll give them a lot of work. Am I wrong in thinking this in the backfield? So
I think Cleveland's rush D is decent, but I think Mixon is probably worth a start. If you don't have better options. If you do, he's definitely not a must start, but he's not the worst start that you could make. Also, when you said it's time, in my head, the beginning of the Vader walkout, it's time, it's Mixon time went through my head, which none of you will get unless you are a fan of very old WWF or potentially All Japan Pro Wrestling. But
hell yeah, it's Mixon time, baby. Yeah, Mixon bomb off the top rope.
Classic. But anyway, yeah, I think it probably is Mixon time. So be aware of it. If you have better plays, don't go out of your way. But if he's a guy that you're thinking about, don't hesitate either. And AJ Green, after, not struggling, but being okay the first couple of weeks, he broke out. I'm expecting it again this week. AJ Green is one of the best receivers in the league.
Yeah, you just expect more of the same. They're just going to lean on him. He's going to get, the 8 to 10 targets. Hopefully, please God, keep doing that.
Without Eifert, do you have any interest in Croft?
No, they'll keep him in the block, and I think they need it. So, yeah, there's not going to be a lot of passing opportunities for the backup tight ends there for Cincinnati this week.
You're very correct, I think, there. So let's move over to the Browns side of the ball. I don't think there's anyone else who really needs to be mentioned, is there?
Like for the Bengals side, I was thinking maybe Gio is flex worthy. I know you own a little bit of him. What are you thinking there?
His snap percentage was so low this past week. I think that touchdown was fluky. And with them as a favorite, I'm really not about it.
All right, that's fair.
Brown side of the ball, DeShone Kizer, if he started him this past week, which I did, it worked out for you. So good for me and you. And then let's talk about those running backs. I don't think Kizer's a good start this week, certainly. But let's talk about those running backs a little bit. Crowell's been very disappointing. Duke Johnson got in the end zone, had a lot of work in the passing game. Are you willing to start either, both, or neither of these guys?
I would start Duke Johnson. I would not start Crowell. I've been starting him every week since the season started, and he's been mediocre and, bad. So it's just Duke Johnson is going to get most of the work. The Browns should be down, and the rush defense for the Bengals is very good. So I think they're going to clog up the lanes for Crowell again. He'll have a pretty disappointing week. And then and then Duke Johnson's going to, reap the benefit off that once again.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think if the Browns are smart, they're going to want to get that pass rush, particularly the interior pass rush with Geno Atkins off of them. The way to do that is to throw the ball to the running back out of the backfield. So I'm very about that. On the wide receiver side, I'm not starting any of them, but if I was going to, it would still be Rashard Higgins, even after that disappointing week.
Yeah, you nailed it. He is going to be working out of the slot primarily. That's where he took a lot of the snaps last week. So you're going to have Kenny Britt on Pac-Man Jones. You're going to have, the other scrubs, Ricardo Lewis or Sammy Coates running around the other side, and you'll have Rashard Higgins somewhere in the middle. It's going to be pretty hard to start him, though, in any serious league because of the absolute dud he had last week against one of the worst pass defenses in the league. So when you throw him out there, it's going to be a super desperation play, but the matchup with Cleveland playing from behind and him working primarily out of the slot is very favorable.
Yeah, it's one of those where he did throw up a dud. That being said, Kaiser to his top 3 wide receivers last week was 7 of 22 in terms
really
of
bad.
Targets, which is just terrible. Higgins did still have 6 targets. He only caught 2 of them. So it's not great. It's not an ideal start. If you're desperate, you can probably do it.
Did you see the Kenny Britt touchdown?
No, I actually didn't see it.
It's the grossest thing I've ever seen. It's
unsurprising.
Kaiser getting pretty much sacked, throwing off his back foot into the corner of the end zone, and then Kenny Britt barely getting both his feet in. It was absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Total garbage, dude.
Yeah, Kenny Britt caught 3 of 10 targets. That's not great.
No.
So we'll see. Who you got in this game?
Please, God, win a game. Bengals. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bengals. I'm going to take them. I bet on them to hit their over in win projections this year, and that's not looking likely so far. And if they don't win this week, it's almost definitely not going to happen.
You bet on them to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but I just thought their odds were good. I got them at 50-1. I didn't think they were actually going to win the Super Bowl. I just thought they were better than 50-1.
You lied to me?
No, that's what I told you when I bet on them.
You told me they were going to win the Super Bowl, man.
Whatever, dude.
Lied to my face.
Let's get into some listener questions. First one we have from Judah. Judah says, if you guys can help me set my lineup, that would be awesome. It is a standard league. All right, Judah, we're going to help you set your lineup. At quarterback, Judah has Matt Ryan and Dak Prescott. I'm going Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan all the way.
At running back, he has Marshawn Lynch, C.J. Anderson, Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, and Jaquiz Rogers. He needs 2 of them plus a flex as well.
It's C.J. Anderson and Tariq Cohen for me.
Yep.
Fuck that. It's hard because I consider the flex, and I almost want to play both Bears running backs and flex Cohen. Is that crazy?
No, it's not crazy because I don't think it's necessary to start all these wide receivers either. So let's go to wide receiver where he needs to start 2. And again, we have that flex in play. Antonio Brown, Dez Bryant, Emmanuel Sanders, and Devontae Adams. Who do you got here?
You're absolutely going to want Sanders out there, Antonio Brown, and Dez and Adams, the odd man out.
So I think this is where the flex consideration comes in because I think you're starting Anderson and Cohen. I think you're starting Brown and Sanders. So the flex is between Howard, Bryant, and Adams. I guess I'm going Howard there. No.
Yeah, you know what sucks though?
I don't know.
It sucks to burn your flex option on Thursday. I'm not a huge fan of that, but this is tough. Let's just say if you're coming down to the wire and you want to play at least one of the running backs, I lean Cohen for Thursday night.
Yeah, I go Cohen over Howard for sure. You know what? I think Yeah, I think I'm playing both those Bears running backs. I think I'm going Antonio and Sanders. Though Dez in the flex would be fine too, I think. But again, you're getting that low floor no matter where you go. So,
Agreed.
At tight end, we've got Rudolph and Reed. If Reed's healthy, you're playing him.
What sucks about that, though, is that is the Monday night game.
The Monday night game. So we have an opportunity to make a roster suggestion here. Judah, I think you should drop Kyle Rudolph and you should pick up Vernon Davis.
Oh, you know what? I agree, because then you can play the Monday night matchup, and Vernon Davis has looked fucking great. So,
yeah, when Vernon Davis starts, he's legit. He's a startable tight end. So
yeah, and that leaves you a lot of room just, to figure everything out for Monday night. You take the pressure off. And Walsh thinks you should drop Rudolph. He said that before. I'm kind of not on that side, but I'm agreeing with him now. So it's a good move.
All right, let's move on to Matt's question. PPR, one flex position. I guess he can super flex because he has Roethlisberger here. We haven't read any of these questions, by the way. So Matt says PPR, one flex position, Roethlisberger, Keenum, Golden Tate, Devontae Adams, or Chris Hogan. I mean,
I'm gonna go Tate. I just think he's gonna get enough PPR work. Like, I think it's just that simple.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Tate as well, even with the super flex. All right, Phil says, what happened to J.J. Nelson last week? Was it because he was hurt? I'm stuck at wide receiver this week. I have Nelson, Snead, Crowder, Lee, and Bryant. Which two should I start? J.J. Nelson, I think, was because he was hurt and because the Cardinals' offense is wildly inconsistent. J.J. Nelson is a big play wide receiver. He's not going to get that kind of production every single week. So it's a combination of those two things. Now, Vinny, what about these two wide receiver spots? Who are you going with here?
For me, it's Jordy Nelson and Snead. And I think it's pretty easy because I don't like Lee, even though his matchup is nice, and Bryant is very,
Is Bryant Dez or Martavis?
I was thinking Martavis.
That's what I thought too.
If it's Dez, I would go Nelson Dez.
See, I think no matter which Bryant it is, I think I'm going Nelson Bryant here.
Okay. I would love to throw Snead in. I really like Snead.
Okay, that's fair. We can differ on that one. Vinny will go Nelson Snead. I'm going to go Nelson and Bryant. Robert is asking, should I trade Elliott and Cohen for Fournette and Mike Evans, especially with the court hearing looming October 2nd for Elliott? PPR league, and he does own Le'Veon Bell. That's a nice humble brag at the end. Yeah. And fuck yeah, you should make that trade.
I think so too. It's ballsy as shit because you don't know what's going to happen, and it's just so dude, having Bell and Elliott could win your league. But
no, he's not. He's saying he's trading away Elliott and Cohen for Fournette and Mike Evans.
That's what I'm saying. He already has Bell and Elliott.
Oh yeah. So you're saying it's ballsy to trade him away, is what you're saying?
Just a little bit. I mean, it's that's already. That's already really nice. I mean, I understand the court hearing stuff is, pretty shitty, but getting Mike Evans and Fournette, that rules. Yeah, you're right. I would do it. I was thinking way too much about it.
I think you got to do that. Heath is asking, would it be a stupid trade to trade David Johnson and Theo Riddick for Jordan Howard and Travis Kelce? What do you think here?
Man, this sounds like an 0-3 team like me. It's just super desperate trying to get out, but I think it's not the worst, man. Basically, you're trading Theo Riddick for Jordan Howard and Travis Kelce right now, and I think you should do it because David Johnson's coming back at the very earliest, week 10, actually probably be week 11 at this point, and may not be 100%. So I would do it.
Yeah, I'm totally on board. I think the tipping point is if you have a losing record, make that trade. If you have a winning record, maybe don't do it. But even if you're 2-1, maybe still do it. So I'm leaning towards doing it either way. Chuck has ESPN standard scoring, and he says my quarterback Carr has a tough matchup this week. Rivers, Palmer, Simeon, Wentz, and Dalton are all available. Who should I start? Vinny, who do you think?
So this is going to be nothing new for Carr. This is something people should have known when they were drafting him. He's going to have some rough matchups coming up. And I wouldn't drop Carr for any of these guys, but if you can drop like another bench spot or something, I think the best matchup this week is Simeon against the Raiders. So that would be like a completely expendable bench spot to get Simeon and spot start him this week. But season long, if you want to drop a guy, I would pick up Rivers because I do like what he's doing.
Okay, I'm actually going Carson Wentz here. I think Carson Wentz is going to throw the ball a lot this week against the Chargers, and I think he's good. So I'm going Wentz.
Nice.
All right. Ryan is asking, how risky is it to trade for Zeke right now? And is
Risky.
C.J. Anderson and Willie Snead a good trade for him? I have Fournette as my other running back, and Antonio Brown and Diggs as my wide receivers, and then Baldwin at my flex. I don't know. Would you give up Anderson and Snead for Zeke right now?
Yeah, that's a good team too. I think you're all right. I mean, I think you're set up fine. I would not, like, with the ambiguity around Zeke, it's never good. So like we were talking about before with the other trade in Zeke, you don't have to risk it. I think you're fine with C.J. Anderson. Willie Snead just got back, so throw him in your lineup. And then Brown, Diggs, and Baldwin are all awesome. So I think you're fine. I think you could sit tight.
Yeah, I think I'd probably sit tight as well. There's a decent chance that C.J. Anderson is just as good as Zeke in terms of fantasy points this year as well. So we'll see what happens. Next question from Jason. I just traded Derek Carr for Marshawn Lynch, Raider on Raider violence, and Pierre Garçon. So, sorry, I interrupted that. He traded Derek Carr for Marshawn Lynch and Pierre Garçon. And now he needs to drop either Jeremy Maclin, Willie Snead, or Terrell Pryor to make room for Pierre Garçon. Oof.
Garçon?
Garçon. Who does he drop there? There's no one else you can drop?
Can we just talk about how crazy that trade is? Like, anyway, gave away Derek Carr for a starting running back.
How insane! Like, how did you manage?
Who gets like 8 targets a game?
An idiot.
That is fucking ridiculous. It doesn't. I would drop Jeremy Maclin.
I'd probably do the same.
We'll talk about Pryor later, but Jerry Maclin is definitely the drop here.
I just can't quit Terrell Pryor.
I was going to say I can't quit him either.
Yeah. All right. Second to last question from Lucas. Who to start this week, Mixon or McCaffrey? And I'm going McCaffrey.
That's tough for me because I'm a Bengals fan. Because I want to say Mixon, but the smart move is definitely McCaffrey. So I'll outweigh my stupid here and say McCaffrey.
All right. And then the last one from the rookie. No name, just the rookie. Standard scoring. Would you trade Lamar Miller for Doug Martin? I would not, but I think you would.
I would fucking do that.
All right. Well, we're no help then. So I wouldn't do it. I'm biased towards Lamar Miller. You should probably do it.
And I'm biased as shit towards Doug Martin. So
yeah. So you should probably not do it.
We are no help.
Yeah, we're the worst people to ask. We'll bring up that question to the rest of the LTFF crew and get their opinions because we're literally the two worst people to ask about that question. All right, guys, that's going to do it for part 1 of the Week 4 preview. We will be back with part 2 of the week preview in real time in just a couple minutes, but in your ears tomorrow. So look forward to that. And for Vinny, I am Walsh. Later, podcast.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.